Hello, is this thing on? Hello, hello, hello. Okay, quick analysis. I'm gonna just kind of just hit fire this, give my initial thoughts. Try not to lean in too much to what I saw earlier, and just kind of go through the motions of what I was experiencing the first time I watched it, and hopefully my thoughts aren't all jumbled and all over the place. I got a few things up here, a couple notes. I got little definitions and stuff, and then I'm gonna go to Luna's thing over here, so that way we kind of have like some kind of flow here. Okay, start off with the video. We're going to look at it right off the rip. Let's see what went wrong here. Okay, I see a blue team, red team. I caught some notes from Luna that there is a level advantage on the left side. I can see the points up here. There is a clear advantage for the red team. Blue team's taking a push here. Fights break out. It looks really sloppy, disorganized. I'm seeing some overextending players. Just looking at the compositions right off the rip, I see like a kind of disruptor tanky front line. We got Atelion is kind of a special ability attack, like kind of long range poke. You got Mew, the equal matchup, I guess, on the other side, but it can also be played as like a support. They kind of have some dive because they have Aegis Slash and Lucario. They have the double tank. They have no support, so they have no sustain. Watching the fight, I guess this is where it flipped, which is where I caught it late the first time. And I'm assuming this is why it's titled What Went Wrong Here? Why did we lose the fight after we just pushed the pad? And all right, now we're gonna go back and I'm gonna break it down into like the um different points of the match where it kind of gives you insight on how to like view these things and how to like break it apart where you're able to catch these things. So right off the start, minus or disregard to the level advantage that we addressed over here. I'm sorry, level advantage is over here on the right side. Misspeaking. Level advantage is for the red team. They also have the point advantage. So just off of that knowledge, they have the upper hand on the pacing of the game. So at this point, 5 minutes in, they're basically in a position to keep that momentum rolling as long as they don't fuck that up, right? But we have additional information over here. We got the little mini map. We can see that there's a Lucario on the board. There's a Mew. And technically, by this, okay, so we have the tier 3 pads still up. And I think I addressed or went over at least like the game awareness or the knowledge that, okay, the center line right down the middle, if you drew an imaginary line, where's my pen tool? This is considered as far as you would need to go if you go past that line for the orange team or the red team, because they still have tier 3 pads up to fall back on in case something happens. That's their safety line, basically. If you pass that, you're overextending, quote unquote, right? So we have Mew for sure overextending. We have the whole blue team. They're grouped as 5. You see 1, 2, 3. There's 4 in a bush here, and then this guy down here, right? And then just based off of that, okay, this game, traditional sports, any other game, MOBA, FPS, chess, anything that involves strategy, you have to understand the concept of like numbers advantage, right? So, I mean, without even going into detail, a 5-player stack versus 2 players on the board that you can see, you're going to win that fight, right? Just by numbers. Okay, so we know that blue is coming in here with the advantage. 2 people are out of position. It's already just like a losing fight at this rate. You see Lucario, he's like charging up. I don't know what was he trying to do, like secure the fucking the minion or something, or just diving into a 1v4 at this point. And then you have Mew down here with Absol, an assassin. This makes it so that Mew cannot help. They're already at a disadvantage by numbers. Mew's trying to get damage off, and then now, see, this is what I caught earlier. The Mew is now split, so you have to disengage by completely rerouting over here to regroup with the team. That's already time off of the board that they're not engaged in the fight. There's already HP disadvantage because they got free damage from the Absol. There's that looming threat that you can just get picked off. then, sorry, I'm so bad with this pen tool. Let's go back to before any of this other stuff, okay? We're pushing here to, I don't know, potentially dump points into this pad. I think that's the goal of the blue team here. There's no objective up here on the north side. We can see that the south objective is coming up. We also have no pads here. So with that same principle from, the safety line, you basically have nothing to fall back on this point, right? So let's say things do start to go south, before getting to the end of the video and knowing what the outcome is. When you fall back from a fight, you don't have any safety nets. Like, this is your safety net, that's your safety net. But then you have all this free space that the enemy team can pressure you into. And unless you have a support, which you do, that's your only safety net at this rate. You are so far away from anything else to turn this disadvantage into an advantage. Okay, so you're already playing your odds wrong right there. Remove those X's. Okay, and go ahead and let's just break the fight down a little more. Okay, moving forward. Okay, I see these 4 postured right here. We got an Absol down, still pressuring the Mew, making sure the Mew can't re-engage in the fight coming through the mid side. They have to wrap around completely. And then here, this is the first thing that caught my eye. So this Ho-Oh goes completely in front of 4 players, already putting yourself in a 1v4. I mean, I get it. Ho-Oh is just a fucking beast tank. Personally, I would have converged and just put all the pressure on the Ho-Oh. Just got rid of a tank immediately. Like, they have no supports. Ho-Oh has what, like the one AoE move that like gives you like a temporary shield. It's like a boost in your tank stats, but it's not really like a button to get out of jail free. Like, it is punishable. They're kind of turning. Aegislash is in here to commit to kind of help out. I guess you can play the rest of this fight out. I mean, it's just all sloppy, right? And like, essentially what I'm getting at, it's very clear that the red team is kind of throwing here because, one, they're at the number disadvantage. Now I'm pausing it again. You have 2 players dead and out, right? You're still on respawn timers. You had the Mew completely wrap all the way around, completely split from these 2. So now it's just 2 tanks versus 5 players, right? You're just staggering at that point, meaning you're just sending one by one instead of doing a coordinated effort to try to prioritize the target, to try to win anything, and then like going back to like the safety nets, you have the tier 3 pad here. It's not as strong as a tier 2 pad or the home base, but it does give you a small amount of shield and it gives you some health regen. Especially when you have no supports, like you kind of need to be playing on that. The whole goal is, if you have the advantage, you have the momentum of the game. You do not need to be overextending, trying to like further that lead when you, by just sitting on the pad, you're already putting pressure on the other team because they're in a deficit that they have to commit and they have to do something to try to balance the game out, right? So overextending, staggering, more people die. They have no sustain. Now it's what, 3, 4 players on one. You got the Blissey still up. These 2, they're staggering again. Okay, yada, yada, yada. Fast forward. Okay, so we got some points in, but now we're falling back. I mean, you still got full health Trevenant. You got health on the Blissey. Aegislash just pushed Absol down here. Got a kill. So now it's 4 players versus 3. Is that what I'm seeing? 3 players. Make sure I'm not blind. Pushing in. Okay. Right here, it's a 4v2. We see that Ho-Oh has the ult. I didn't even glance earlier from the previous team fights if it was up or not. But now, what happens when you die? You get like a certain percentage of like your ult charge back, coming back in with the ultimate to come res the team. You have nothing to fall back on. You didn't even break the pad. They're still at the advantage. And boom, right there. Gets the res off. 2 players are low, including the support. Well, I shouldn't say low, half HP, but now you have your big damage dealer that is pretty decent against this comp. You got the Ho, tanky, just putting pressure on by going to the back line. You have your Mew and your Mamoswine coming in now. You're just pressing the odds back into their favor, and they're closing out the fight. Essentially, just get split up in the fight, and you end up losing, right? Okay, now they're at the advantage. Now that top objective's up. They're going to get it, and now they can push that into the home base. I didn't see what the remaining time was, but you're past 5 minutes. That video is, what, a minute long? You're at 4 minutes. You're pushing it close to that 3:30 kind of point where you kind of want that top objective up closer to the Ray fight so you can put the pressure on the pad, especially when you're losing. But I'm assuming they take it from there, and then the game just kind of snowballs more into, a losing match. Unless you flip the Ray. That's your saving grace every time. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Luna's notes. All right, here. So this is where I had kind of some primed thoughts before even going to the video. And, okay, first thing off the rip, let's see left side levels. You got, I said it backwards. Blue team is at a disadvantage here. Red team has the advantage, and they also have the point advantage. That is a good way to look at this and analyze it, and kind of just take your information that's available and kind of assess it as, unless you're doing a full team fight, even in that regard, you're probably still going to lose. That is correct. The comments that I have to say about that is, the overall deficit. It's like, yes and no. That is good knowledge to know. But in the heat of the moment, right, you have your 5 individual players. It is a lot of things happening all at once. And then this is where it comes down to each individual basis, where you just have to have the situational awareness that if you do get into fights, you have to understand that you're either making the coordinated effort to do team fights, because you can be at a level disadvantage, but you can have ultimates up on the board and win and stabilize the game and bring the momentum back into your favor. Or if you don't get in team fights, you have to understand which people on your team are ahead over what players on their team, right? So you have Inteleon, which I can just look right here, level 11. You have a couple players like Mew, level 9. You could probably win that 1v1 matchup if they get caught out. Is it ideal? Is it more likely than not that your Inteleon's is going to be roaming around free to find a magical pick? Not really, but when you play numbers games, there is also that side of critical thinking that is involved, that you can't just look at it as, all right, let's look at the accumulative levels of the whole team and then the accumulative levels of our team and see where we stand. That's where it does get more in depth than that, but it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It just reinforces that sentiment that I started at the beginning of the video, where you kind of look at the situation and what the conditions, right? So what I look for at glance when I open this video, it's a minute long. What are the conditions, and then who has the advantage, right? So we already went over that. The conditions was you have your full team stacking, pushing up towards the tier 3 pad. You see that the team with the advantage or the momentum throughout the game is out of position. So you are in the right to be pushing that and trying to score. However, when you look at it objectively, from all the other things that I added in, you have no safety net to fall back, what objectives are up on the board, what kind of control of the map that you have. If you're going to push a pad, probably would have pushed it towards the bottom side. More teams tend to favor the top objective later in the game. And it's kind of goes into where, I say that the priority for when those two objectives first spawn, I think it's more important to get the global buff from the bottom objective first. You can break the tier 3 pad without the Regieleki up top. It's kind of a waste. You really want it so you can fast dump all your points, in large amounts on the tier 2 or the home pad whenever the raise up, to put that kind of pressure that, okay, they either have to go all the way back to spawn or they have to commit to the Ray fight. And then you're stuck in this dilemma of, what do we defend? Do we defend the point dump, or do we defend the potential loss in the game because you can just flip the Ray, right? Some team is positioned far away enough from the objective / goal to be able to delay until backup. Yep, that's precisely what I was saying. They have the safety net. They should not be overextending. We saw that they did. It panned out that way. They kind of really staggered, and honestly, they just used the law of attrition until it was in their favor because they had an ultimate, and then they ended up winning the fight. As well as provide vision to adjust their team's positioning. Mew and Lucario, not in predictable and easily adjustable positions to pick, especially. Yeah, they're just out of position. Like, I don't know what the hell they're doing. Support Blissey should not be in front. True. Support should not, especially when you're the only support, and it's a late game scaling support. You need as much experience as possible in the game. You have to stay up as much as possible so you can min-max that whole leveling experience throughout the entirety of the game, especially when they have no sustain. They cannot provide support heals, etc. If they are isolated, allies cannot receive it. Yeah, especially at this health bar, that's a good catch. They should not be frontlining. They should not be the first one trying to dump points. I understand the need to pressure it, like if you get a pick or something, but I mean, you're just already at a disadvantage throughout the pacing of the entirety of the game at any rate, and the support should have the proper positioning behind somebody. It shouldn't be their job to dump points, right? Maybe instead less engaging, more harassing, baiting. True. I feel like after pressuring that Mew, like if you want to be analytical about it and go through the potential things you could have done instead, maybe look at this pick right here. You get a Lucario pick. Okay, now you have a numbers advantage again. How can you further push that advantage? Are you risking it? Because, if you're on their pad, they can play the heals. They can just poke and just cancel the point dump. They don't even have to win a fight. They just have to make sure that you are not pushing points into it, right? So the other thing you could do is you could fake a rotate, fog of war. You disappear on the map, and then, they lose vision. What you could do is you could just literally all sit in a bush. I cannot believe how many players in this game just don't bush clear. They don't properly, like, coordinatedly go through a map and make sure that they are limiting the possibility of just getting completely team wiped. You can literally, if you're patient enough, just sit in a bush. As long as you know where the team is, pick any bush. They will walk to you. And if they don't walk in that bush, they will be within arm's reach to just explode and just, again, play the numbers game. Even if you get the one pick, you're going to fucking turn the game into your favor. Okay, going on right here. Let's go back. Try to stay within an eject button distance from the front line with a Yep. Okay, going down. Tank Trevenant should be the first person in position. Oh, okay. This was the other point that I was gonna. Okay. This is not wrong. This is correct, and you could, like, literally, if you had no experience in any MOBAs ever, you could just go Google what is a tank's job, what is a defender's job in a MOBA, right? I looked it up. I got my notes here because it is something I want to elaborate on, because this is one of the points that Terra tried to push so heavily on Punchline when we're on Frostwolves, okay? So, like, typically in most MOBAs, by definition, a tank's role is to primarily absorb damage from the enemy team, acting as a shield for the teammates by attracting enemy attention and attacks, allowing the damage dealers to safely focus on dealing damage without being overwhelmed. Okay, they typically have high health pools, armor, they have defensive stats, they have CC. That's an important one, okay? So, it's not wrong in the sense that is what they're designed to do. However, offering deeper insight to that, I would almost I'm trying to think of like how to word it. It's better to rewire that thinking, right? Because if you're able to view it in a different light, you'll have a better understanding of how they can maximize their potential, right? So the primarily absorb damage, yes, because of their tank stats, they have higher flat defense and special defense. They have higher HP pools, and their ability kits are just generally designed to stall out a fight and stall out incoming damage. You know, because like with CC, right? You have where'd the damn video go? I think I closed it. You have Trevenant, right? You have two forms of CC you can use, and if not, you have the sustain that he gets from the AOE. And if you don't know what AOE is, area effect. You know, Ho-Oh here doesn't really have CC per se. They have a slow. I mean, it is a form of CC, but it's not hard CC. But it primarily has just a fuck ton of HP. It has that AOE that slows, but it gives you a boost in your shield temporarily. So it just prolongs your ability to stay in a fight. And then you have this guy who is just 100% hard CC. He has the biggest yeah, his kit is designed to fucking mitigate damage and displace people on the enemy team, right? And you know, alluding back to the point that I was trying to make, allowing damage dealers to safely focus on dealing damage without being overwhelmed. Okay, this is the term that I was trying to explain. They have to be viewed as not solely just frontliners. They can initiate. They have the ability to initiate because they have the CC. If you can lock down a damage dealer before the whole team fight breaks out, meaning that you have the first punch, you have a higher chance of winning a fight, even if you're at the disadvantage. As long as you get the first draw and then they can't respond, you're going to win. Adversely, on the other side, they are known as peelers. Your whole job is not to just sit in the front and take damage, because if the sustain or your support cannot get to you, or the damage output is too high, if you're getting CC'd, it doesn't matter how much damage you're taking, you're going to be out of the fight, and then it's a numbers game again. The whole objective of a defender is to make sure that your DPS is alive. So, for example, Trevenant, right? Your CC is designed to stall and prevent people from getting to your backline. Okay, if you're playing a Blastoise, for example, this is a good one because Blastoise isn't necessarily a main tank. He's like an off tank because you mostly build damage into him, right? You build special attack, you do like burst, but his kit mostly is disruption. You got the surf, and then you have the cannons that kind of like does the pushback, and then you have the ultimate, which is just it's a 5-man win condition. You just knock the whole team up, and then you just wipe them from there, right? So it allows him to be mobile, to get into positions that most tanks can't get to. But he doesn't have as good a tank stance as actual main tanks, like the stuff that you normally see, like Trevenant and Ho-Oh or like Mamoswine, right? He is an alt tank or an off tank. He should be a secondary tank to another. So like when you go into build crafting compositions, you want to always pair it with like an Umbreon or a main tank. You know, you can go like Blastoise and then like a main tank, like throw a Ho-Oh or a Mamoswine, whatever the hell it is. Put an actual real tank in there. Like Blastoise's job is peeling, so like to this point, he has the best ability to be an extension of, like, if you had like a Cinderace, right? If you get caught out a Cinderace, you're so squishy, you are just going to be in a 4v5 every single team fight. But he has the ability to quickly get back to the back line, protect, and peel by throwing out the CC and stalling out the damage that's getting put out to your damage dealers. And it allows certain Pokemon like Cinderace to freely get their damage off without being harassed. So like peeling is an important term that I don't think like a lot of Pokemon players really know about. That's typically from like the more popular MOBAs, League of Legends, Dota, stuff like that. it took me like 5 seasons to even learn what the hell peeling was. Okay. Long rant. Sorry. I know. I'm trying to speed it up here. Where are we? Considerations, level deficits into a losing objective. Team fights suggest defensive positioning. Yeah. Posturing. It's always good to be mindful of what you're doing ahead of time, and that's where like each player needs to communicate so that you can make a collaborative decision before the team fight breaks out. Around the tier 2 goal says jungle area. Additionally, farming would have provided. Yeah, honestly, the safe bet is you're losing that much. Go farm and just prep for the objective. Don't even try to score at that point. Like your whole goal at that point when you were losing 5 minutes in, almost 300 points to nothing, is to just close the gap as much as possible. You don't have to force team fights. You can just stall it out. They will get as much farm as their pads allow. Because you lost these 2 pads, you have more of an opportunity to close the gap without furthering their lead. Tailing give the location way too early creates an awkward situation. Absolute meal. Yup. Seem to be no clear defined goal for the push. Yeah. Like right on the head. It's like, I don't know who made that call. It was just kind of like, well, I mean, there's a top pad. Maybe we can go up there. Because I don't even think the bottom objective was even like on the board with the timer yet. It was just kind of like, let's just go up there. Realistically, it's probably not the best route to go. You have your pads on there. Probably would have went bottom just based off of that. Follow through. Yep. I mean, these are all good notes. Those are like the 2 main things I wanted to cover. It's like this thing, it's like not wrong, but in the heat of the moment where there's like so much stuff going on and there's a lot of critical thinking involved, this is more back end stuff to just go over the fact that like if you got somebody in your group that's like kind of arguing like, we could have won this, we could have XYZ, blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, general rule of thumb is like you were just at such a deficit, it probably wasn't a good fight to begin with. But like digressing back to that earlier point, it's if you just look at them on an individual basis and pay attention to the kill feed, the notice, these things, KO streak times 2, just see what portrait you're seeing a lot and just understand that they are the highest priority because you shut them down, you get the biggest reward and experience, you get the biggest, well, you don't get money in this game, you get the biggest opportunity to close the gap, and it resets them entirely throughout whatever lead they had. They are just fucking even keel after 1 death. It can really throw an entire fucking game, and that should be the priority in team fights. It's just, yeah, I mean, there's like a lot to go through with the video. What else? Numbers advantage, yeah. I don't think I really talked too much about numbers advantage, but yeah, it is just a concept that just comes from like traditional sports and stuff. Anything that involves strategy, you just always want to keep things simple and just understand that it is a numbers game. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a 1-minute video. I got to get ready for work. I kind of like just went on a huge tangent, but I hope that helps.